with Make America White Male Dominated Again. Yes, 3 white men talking about the importance of merit. Inherently qualified white men who deserve every job, losing out to people who are not white men and therefore inherently unqualified diversity hire.
You should get a feeling where she's going to be taking this. MSNBC's The Readout with Joy Reid is about to give a huge dose of racism. And I got to tell you, I don't like this person. I don't respect her, as well as one of the most divisive people in media today. Just letting you know, this may be a little bit bitter. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be an interesting ride. Let's start by watching a clip from Joy Reid's show. You saw a little of the excerpts from there. Here it is.
Donald Trump beginning his purge of the federal workforce, who Project 2025 architect Russell Vogt is hoping will be traumatically affected by what's in store for them. That as Trump's extremist militia buddies, Enrique Tarrio and Elmer Stewart Rhodes, are now free men, with Tarrio back home in Miami after demanding retribution on Alex Jones' show, and Rhodes heading right back to the scene of the crime for a visit with his Republican benefactors on Capitol Hill. This should all just work out great.
Her sarcasm is offensive.
But we begin tonight with Make America White Male Dominated Again, starting with the federal government workforce and federal contractors. Now, you may have noticed a theme, a certain buzzword from Donald Trump and many of his cabinet nominees.
We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based.
Ensuring readiness and meritocracy is front and center.
Return our country to the merit system, you know?
We must be the ultimate meritocracy.
Yes, 3 white men talking about the importance of merit in roles they're all unqualified for. Donald Trump and his nominee for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and nominee for CIA Director John Ratcliffe. It's an especially dubious concept for Trump in particular, since this self-made man, in scare quotes, reaped about $413 million from his father Fred's real estate empire at birth, and then dodged taxes all along the way of his career. That Donald Trump has some, feelings about merit and diversity, which, according to Trump and MAGA World, counts as inherently qualified white men who deserve every job, losing out to people who are not white men and therefore inherently unqualified diversity hires.
And as a journalist, she should actually be able to back this up, which she has failed to do, fails to do, and will not do. This woman is atrocious, but let's let her finish.
And with those grievances in mind, Trump repealed Lyndon Johnson's 1965 Executive Order 11246, which forbade federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. It granted the Labor Department the power to enforce its provisions through a contracting standards office and has for decades been used by presidents of both parties to improve workplace standards across the country. The executive order, which Johnson signed a year after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, required that employers who accept federal contract money take affirmative action not to discriminate against job applicants or workers. And as of this week, it is no more. And tonight, as of about 2 hours ago, all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion employees have been placed on paid leave following the replacement executive order Trump signed Tuesday night, claiming to restore merit-based opportunity.
All right, let's break this down. Joy Reid seems pretty fired up about Trump's recent executive orders, doesn't she? But let's take a step back and take a look at what's really going on here. You see, Reid claims that Trump is purging the federal workforce. She claims that with a spitting tone and making sure to enunciate all of her words clearly to show her utter disdain. Now, let's not call her hypocritical because she's already proven to be homophobic, which was part of that protected group with her slandering the then Governor Charlie Crist. And as far as aggressive, her portrayal of John McCain leaves much to be desired. If you have any questions about that, I encourage you to research it. This woman is not a saint. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that she's the one spitting racial divide and prejudice. What Trump's actually doing is repealing an executive order from 1965. The order mandated certain diversity practices for federal contractors. Now, Reid portrays this as an attack on diversity, but is that really the case? See, Trump's new order emphasizes merit-based hiring. And if that's such a bad thing, I don't think it is. Well, according to her, though, it is. However, here we have a Harvard-educated woman whose father came from the Congo, and she was able to rise based on her merit, not on diversity. Merit. She's a hypocrite, and she's a bitter person. Obviously, I guess she makes her money dividing people and dividing people by race, which makes her the worst kind of hypocrite. Why don't we let the witch continue? I'm sure she has more she'd like to add.
Now, again, merit is a curious thing to focus on, since many of Trump's own cabinet picks have been deemed the least meritorious and least qualified individuals to ever be nominated for their posts. There is political Nepo baby Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to run the Department of Health and Human Services, despite having no healthcare expertise. And South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary, who's so qualified, she's banned from tribal lands, making up 12% of her state because of how flagrantly she's offended indigenous tribes. There's Trump's pick for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Where to begin on her merit? The Wall Street Journal reported last week that in Tulsi's meeting with Republican Senator James Lankford, she couldn't clearly articulate what the role of Director of National Intelligence entails. And when she met with Republican Senator Mike Rounds, she seemed confused about a key U.S. national security surveillance power that she would be charged with overseeing. And who could forget Trump's choice for FBI Director Kash Patel? Like Gabbard, he hasn't had a confirmation hearing yet, but he submitted a background questionnaire for senators on the Judiciary Committee. The New York Times notes one of the most intriguing lines in his reference to participating in the American Bar Association's Judicial Intern Opportunity Program, a diversity initiative, while a student at Pace University's law school in 2003. I guess diversity isn't such a dirty word if your sole and total allegiance is to Donald Trump. Meanwhile, perhaps his least qualified cabinet pick could get a vote before the full Senate as soon as tomorrow.
I don't know about you, but her spitting tone and sharp pronunciation is just offensive and completely arrogant. You see, Reid's criticizing Trump's cabinet picks as unqualified, but isn't that a bit of a stretch? Sure, some picks may be unconventional, but does that automatically make them unqualified? Reid seems to have a problem with the term merit-based. She implies it's a code of favoring white men, but isn't that assumption itself a form of prejudice? Now, let's address something Reid conveniently ignores. Remember her own history with controversial comments. Back in Miami, she made some pretty offensive remarks regarding Charlie Crist, who was at that point the governor. And I alluded to those earlier. These comments were seen as homophobic by many. She's quick to point fingers at Trump and his supporters, but maybe she should take a look in the mirror first. Let's watch one more clip. And as an FYI, it's worth noting that Reid went to school at Harvard. I'm impressed, as most would be. Funny though, Hedspeth also went to Harvard. That is who she is about to speak on. He also went to Princeton. As with her, I'm impressed. And Reid, well, she's qualified for her role as a spokesperson for the network because, okay, well, maybe she's not. Maybe she's just very smart as well as divisive and prejudiced. And being very smart in my world means you have some qualifications, yet she won't extend those qualifications to others because she is where she is based on merit, and that would be against the narrative that seems to pay her bills. She's such a hypocrite, but let's let her bury herself some more. Hey, before we play the next clip, if you're doing what I normally do, you're sitting on a couch, take your phone out and scan this QR code. We'd love to ask you to subscribe to our channel. It tells YouTube we're doing something that's valuable, and it makes us feel pretty good as well. Or just hit the subscribe button. It's right down below. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Now let's get back to what we're talking about.
Aforementioned Defense Secretary choice and former Fox Weekend host Pete Hegseth, as senators will have to weigh a new allegation involving the content of his character. In a signed affidavit to senators on the Armed Services Committee obtained by NBC News, Hegseth's former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth, claims that he engaged in volatile and threatening conduct that caused his second wife, Samantha, to fear for her safety. According to the affidavit, Samantha Hegseth developed and executed plans with members of Hegseth's family and mutual friends to help her escape if she felt she needed to get away from Hegseth, noting that the plans included what Danielle Hegseth refers to as a safe word, code word, that Samantha could text to her to let friends and family know, or to text to her friends and family, to let them know that she needed help. Through his lawyer, Hegseth denied that he was abusive to his ex-wife Samantha, and his ex-wife Samantha, and said there was no physical abuse in my marriage. That is what Samantha said during their divorce. And both parties signed a court document saying that neither parent claimed to be a victim of domestic abuse. The affidavit was provided in response to a request by Armed Services Committee ranking member Senator Joy Reid after learning that Danielle Hegseth was interviewed for an FBI background check, but that details of her testimony were not included in the final briefing provided to senators.
I wanted to play the whole clip because otherwise I would have been doing what she did, and that's pick only what served the narrative. Reid's bringing up allegations against Pete Hegseth. I get that. These are serious claims that deserve attention, but notice how she's presented them as fact before they've been proven. Isn't that a bit irresponsible for a journalist? I guess she's just more of a mouthpiece than an actual journalist. Although, throughout this segment, Reid makes a lot of strong statements. But how many of them are based on facts versus her personal opinions and her enunciation to make sure she proves the point? As viewers, we need to be critical and question what we're being told. Now, let's be clear. We're not here to defend Trump or to attack Reid. Okay, I may be here to attack her a little bit. I think she's one of the worst alleged journalists out there and definitely one of the most hate-mongering and race-mongering and divisive. None of these are merit-based, and it's worth mentioning that President Trump hired the first woman chief of staff, the first openly gay Treasury Secretary in Scott Bessent. Kash Patel's Indian, Tulsi Gabbard is Hawaiian. The only thing we didn't have is Mayor Buttigieg in this ridiculous outfit. Yes, I know it's a fake, and that's why I put it up that way. But I couldn't help it. Talk about unqualified. He was the mayor of a small town. Kind of ironic how that makes Reid look even more hypocritical. Our goal is to encourage critical thinking. We want you to look beyond the surface at what's being said. So that wraps it up for this one. If you haven't figured it out, I'm not a big fan of Joy Reid. I think she is I'm not going to say it because I'm a gentleman. Bottom line is, though, there's a whole lot of dicey words being used with punctuation. And that's just a little ridiculous. This is the synopsis of stupidity. We'll see you real soon. Watch this next video if you would.